Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchidananda Mohortaye Nishprapanjaya Shantaye Niralambaya Tejase Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sukandim Pushtivajanam Urvaru Kamivabandhanam Vrityur Mukshya Mamrutat Om Shanti 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 Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Satchidananda Mohortaye Nishprapanjaya Shantaye Niralambaya Tejase Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivadanam Urvaru Kamivabandhanam Vrityur Mukshya Mamrutat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. So here we are, round 2, or it might be round 4 or 5 by now.
Somewhere along there.
With Kurt Evans and myself dialoguing, trying to capture moments in my 53 or more. I was going to say 53 years being an actress, but then you can ask whatever you want before that.
But I'm also here for all those struggling actors who need a quick lesson from the great Sally Kirkland, so pay attention.
Survival lesson. But I want to start off by saying Happy Rosh Hashanah. And how do you say the other thing?
I have no idea. All I know is Baptist talk.
Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Happy Rosh Hashanah.
Which started just within this past hour.
Mm-hmm.
To all of my Jewish friends and to all of us, Happy New Year. Having said that, I will turn the
all over to me.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, I recently read an article about you and an interview and a review that called you witty and artistic Sally Kirkland. And they were speaking about Andy Warhol and how he epitomizes the concept of the indie film. Can you explain to all of us your love affair with indie films?
Independent films. Well, first I have to say that I don't think Andy epitomized the independent film.
You think they mean his career?
No, you have to. Andy Warhol did Andy Warhol, which was basically for the first years putting a camera on and not having any movement at all. And I know because I was on the other side of that camera.
Okay.
The person who epitomized it and who basically started it was a man named John Cassavetes.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why I wanted so to become an actress was to be in a John Cassavetes film. Because he worked with wonderful actors, Jenna Rollins, his wife, Seymour Cassell, on the tip of my tongue, Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk, all these wonderful actors, and he worked with them over and over again, and there was a true family. And he didn't have enough money to make a whole feature film all at once, so he would shoot some footage for a couple of weeks and then wait X amount of months to get more money and then continue shooting. And this is really the beginning of independent films, and that was in the 50s.
What do you think they meant as far as his career in epitomizing what he was trying to convey? Because had he gone to another filmmaker or director, would they have understood what he was trying to convey? Because he was so different for his time. I mean, he was out there as far as, I don't know if he was out as far as being gay, but I'm saying, would someone have given him that opportunity had he not preceded himself?
Taken it. Well, Andy was a painter. He was an artist. And, you know, he started off decorating the store windows of, say, Lord & Taylor's and other stores in New York with basically shoes. And so my mother, Sally Kirkland also, was fashion editor of Life magazine in the late 40s, 50s, 60s. And she asked him, at that point he had done one painting that was known, at least among the knowing. And that was the Campbell soup one? Campbell soup can. So she asked if she could do a fashion story on his shoes in the window he was decorating with the Campbell soup can as the background.
Right.
And I believe that was his first publicity, was my very own mother So he sort of had a crush on her. I think I mentioned that on another show with you. And so it was easy for me to meet Andy because he was so in love with my mother, because she sort of caught who he was and publicized it. And basically Andy was all about publicity. He was all about promoting, you know, doing everything he could to bring the public attention to an object or to a photograph or to somebody falling out of a window, a news story. So the most recent Andy show I went to, which was at MoCA here in Los Angeles, maybe 4 years ago or something, you went from room to room and you would see, of course, the Campbell soup can and the various Marilyn Monroes and the suicide attempts and the disaster murderers headlines. And you realize that he just absolutely blew everything up that was on the minds and imaginations of American pop culture or whatnot. But would I, Sally Kirkland, say he started independent film? No. I would say John Cassavetes started in the 50s. There's a man named Ernest Borgnine who started Marty and
won the Academy Award.
And the film was up for the Academy Award. And that's the first time in the history of well, I hope I'm getting this right, in the history of film, that a tiny little film with an unknown actor or unknown to the world.
Right, and not that big of a cast as well. And plus you're dealing with animals.
So, I'm still on my track.
Okay.
So that was why I thought that I could promote Anna, my film, and get it all the way to the Oscars, because I was, in my mind, the female Ernest Borgnine.
Okay.
With this tiny little $350,000 film called Anna. And we didn't do it like John Cassavetes, breaking it up into, you know, now we have enough money to shoot 2 weeks worth, now we're going to wait, now we're going to shoot some more. But we did shoot the whole thing in less than a month. And I did a lot of learning my craft of film through Roger Corman. And of course, I'm in good company because Jack Nicholson did too, and Martin Scorsese and Coppola, and my friend Ron Howard, who directed me at TV. And Roger would make a feature film in a week, which is basically what the studio system used to do in the old days. They would have actors under contract, and you would shoot a film in a week. I got to know John Carradine, whose sons we know, you know, Keith and David, who passed over a couple years ago, Bobby Carradine. And John Carradine told me he did 500 films. Well, an actor could not do 500 films nowadays because we don't have the studio system anymore.
Right.
But back in the days of the studio system, a studio would sign you and then put you to work, and you'd finish that film, and then the next week you'd be doing this film, and they'd be doing that film. And they made them really quickly. And I've just been watching Turner Classics, which is such a great channel. Robert Osborne hosting it. And it was shown to us on television that, and I wish I could remember her name. I'm so upset that I can't remember her name. That the very first film director, of course, silent films, was a woman.
I didn't know that.
Was a woman. And the very first was a woman, and her films were about 15 minutes long, and they were considered features back then. 15 minutes was considered a feature. But she told little stories, little poignant stories, you know, in these 15-minute. Nowadays it would be a short, but back then it was a feature.
Do you feel, go ahead.
Yeah? I was just going to say, what I'm really getting at is all of this is sort of independent, because she made her own films, John Cassavetes made his own films, Andy made his own films. And why am I attracted to it? Because I'm not your typical Hollywood movie star that, you know, I look like Elizabeth Taylor or Marilyn, and a studio is going to rush to put me in their films. I don't look like that. And I'm not British, so in England, all of the women that look like me work all the time on stage, on television, and film. And now, I'm sorry. I was going
to say, but when you said about the great June Allison, she wasn't what you would call a beauty by Marilyn Monroe standards.
She was under contract. She was under contract to a studio that kept her working. And she could sing and dance and act and all of it. So, being that the studio system, as we have it now, didn't, you know, put me under contract, I had to create my own work. And I did this thing in The Way We Were. I did cameos in them. But then I had to figure out what to do after that was over. So I did a lot of television. Lots of Aaron Spelling. Beretta, Kojak, Lou Grant, Charlie's Angels, Starsky and Hutch.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I started doing Roger Corman films, which would be called indies.
Okay.
And then I cast for Roger Corman. I cast actors. Mm-hmm. And then I got the bug about being a producer. So he kind of, I think I told this to you in another interview, Roger took me through casting and producing, and he wanted me to direct. He was teaching me everything.
And what was his reasoning for that? Making
because
you
he thought I would be a great director.
Okay.
He thought I was great with actors. And he would call me up and say, well, who do you think is good now? And I'd say, well, there's a young actor named Bobby De Niro at the Actors Studio. And I would be the first person to introduce him to Robert De Niro. You know, and
so if it wasn't for doing, I don't mean to be stepping over your answers, but do you feel had they not done away with the studio system, would we be dealing with indie films now in such a vast?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? So it was a good thing, or you have pros and cons on both sides?
I'm in favor of studio films, and I'm in favor of independent films. I think the reason why this question is asked me so much is I've made my success in independent
your longevity,
films.
Right.
I think I'm known as an independent film actress. I'm not your typical, give me a second.
Ingenue? Well,
no, of course not, no. But I was thinking, okay, Helen Mirren.
Okay.
Helen Mirren is British.
Right.
There we go again. But Helen Mirren stars in many, many studio films. And she's always been brilliant since she was very young. And I just saw a picture online yesterday of her when she was 25, and she was gorgeous, drop-dead gorgeous. And she's married to Taylor Hackford, which doesn't hurt. You know, many of the actresses are married to the business in one way or another. Michelle Pfeiffer, many. And I've been stubbornly independent all my life, not only liking independent films, but not automatically falling into a marriage scenario. And I think I would like to be married. It just hasn't worked out that way. I mean, last time we talked, I mentioned I'd been married twice for a second.
But aren't you married to your career?
Yeah, but a lot of women who are married to their careers
with
also.
Longevity.
Yeah. I'm in Helen Mirren is a case of longevity. Judi Dench. Betty White, whose husband died, but she was happily married. Anyway, enough on that question.
Okay. I also read an interview where when you were asked the question about being an actor, and you said that you consider yourself more of a painter than an actor. What did you mean by that? I mean,
I have no idea what I meant by that, because I definitely don't consider myself more of a painter.
Well, the way that you explained it was it being a blank canvas in the role that you take and being able to paint.
Robert De Niro once said to me, when you walk into the audition room, you're a blank canvas. You let the director paint on that canvas what he wants. If you come in with the painting already painted, then the director has nowhere to go. I think I might have been referring to that. But I do paint, and I haven't been painting recently. It's like having writer's block. I'm a poet too, and I haven't been writing recently. I did write one poem about John Wharton, the spiritual director of the Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness. And we have That Which Is, which goes out on the World Wide Web. And I did my poem about John right before he spoke. That was about 3 weeks ago. But I've been having writer's block, and I've been having painter's block.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I did have, the Earth Cafe in West Hollywood. I did have a show maybe some 5 years ago, 8 years ago, of a lot of my paintings. And musicians came and jammed, and it was very successful. NBC did a show on me on it, But no, acting comes first. Painting comes second.
Yeah, I was going to talk. I need to say one thing to the director. The feedback's coming through the camera. Thank you. Anyway, I also want to ask you. I don't know if you're aware about Jack Nicholson and what has happened with him.
Well, I don't know if I believe it.
Okay.
But, I mean, I read what you read probably online, that he's...
well, I heard on the news today.
Oh, really? That he's retiring from acting?
But because they think that he has memory loss and... they alluded to Alzheimer's. They didn't say the actual word.
Marlon Brando couldn't remember his
Somebody
lines, and
said
they put
that.
a thing in his
I
ear.
saw that on Facebook. Someone said, why don't they do the same with him like they did with Marlon
Just
Brando?
feed him the lines, yeah. I'm sure that Jack Nicholson will find a way, if he wants, to keep going. If that happened to me, and it did happen to me when I had implants back in the 80s, 90s.
I remember you telling us about
and I got very, very, very sick. Just missed having cancer, breast cancer, and developed fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome and all of these awful things. And one of the things that happened was that because I was a yoga teacher, I stood on my head every day and did the shoulder stand. I was upside down. And all of the silicone that leaked from the implants went into my brain. And I lost my memory for a period of years and was horrified because I didn't I supported myself all this time. And at that point, teaching wasn't making me enough, teaching acting. So I would do plays, and I would have the script here, and I would basically learn as much as I could with my memory loss, and then I would read it, and people still came to the theater to see me. I was amazed. But I wouldn't let critics review me because I was so embarrassed that I had lost my memory. And then once I was healed of all of that, and they got all the stuff out of me, and it was quite a long process, I got my memory back. Now Jack's only 76. That's pretty young, so I would think that he'll find a way around it. Maybe he'll direct, and put himself like Ron Howard. Well, no, like who? I'm just thinking of Hitchcock
now. Not Marlon,
now.
though, right?
Marlon?
Marlon Brando.
Marlon directed.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But that's so odd to me, a business where you have to depend on your memory.
Yeah. Well,
you think that would make it stronger?
Yeah. When I was in high school, I hated exams, and I hated. Would you please tell the director of this show that we only are doing close-ups today? We're not doing any wide shots. Anyway, when I forgot my stream of thought. We were talking about.
You were talking about Marlon Brando and not Marlon, but Jack Nicholson and forgetting his lines, and how Marlon Brando had his lines written on his set. And you weren't sure if you believed the story about Jack Nicholson and the memory lost, and how you dealt with it.
I had some of my lines written on the ceiling because I had a 5-minute monologue.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure if I would get through the whole 5 minutes of dialogue, so I had some of the lines on the ceiling. And when I hold Paulina Porskova on the bed in this 5-minute scene, part of it I'm reading off the ceiling. But it's a known fact about Marlon having a thing in his ear feeding him the lines. Anyway, I think Jack is so brilliant, he'll find a way. Do you want to know who my favorite younger actor is?
Okay.
Maybe you know his work, Michael Fassbender.
I know Michael.
And you saw Shame? And did you see... I
just recently saw him on a talk show. That's why the name is so fresh in my mind.
Was he on a talk show?
I can't remember where I saw it, but I remember the name that attached to his last name. I'm like, wow, okay.
So brilliant. I guess he's about 36 or so. I first became aware of him in Jane Eyre. And I had seen Laurence Olivier do Jane Eyre when I was much younger. And I had tears streaming down my face because I was Jane, and I was madly in love with this man, but somehow the love was unrequited, and then he came to find me, and at that point he was blind, and you know the story of Jane Eyre? Anyway, I had no idea who this actor was, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, this is the most romantic, most classically trained, extraordinary actor. And then I saw Prometheus and X-Men and all these films, and what I love about him is that you can see him. He's going to do Macbeth in January with Marianne Cotillard. He's as relaxed in classical parts as he is in contemporary, and he's so brilliant. He plays piano. He knows everything there is to know about film and music. And anyway, I'm totally in love with Michael Fassbender. So here's my fantasy, you guys. At some point, somebody's going to put me in a movie with him. I don't know whether I'll be his mother or his confidant or something, but that's an actor to watch, Michael Fassbender.
I want to ask you something that I would like for you to touch on for those actors out there. You spoke recently at one of the indie. You were on a, what do you call it? A
festival?
Right. You were on like this, what do you call people sitting on the
panel?
Panel, that's the word I'm looking for. And you spoke about the camaraderie between actors.
Camaraderie.
Right. Thank you very much. My ebonics kind of gets in there sometimes. And you spoke about us all hanging around each other and how much you get from that. Can you explain the importance of us being friends with each other and not so competitive? Even a camera person or a grip, anybody. How important that is into creating the magic of what you're putting on film.
Well, it's a tribe, you know?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And once you're a member of the tribe, you know, each member of the tribe contributes, and we're all part of this team. Mm-hmm. I'm a complete freak for the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. You know, you give me Clayton Kershaw pitching, and Zach Cranky, or heartthrob Andre Ethier, mm-hmm. hitting a home run the other day. But what's so great about them, and now they have 22-year-old Zackiel Puig, who's mm-hmm. 22 years old, hitting home runs. They really work when they're a team, when nobody's got an ego, you know. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with actors and directors and camera people and musicians. When everybody's like trying to make this thing come together like a team, then it feels like family, and you feel really safe. And
the same way I feel when I come here. I feel, you know, with that concept that you speak of, that's how I feel. Sometimes I feel like we should just sit on the floor, you know, have something to eat and just talk like actors and talk about the business. And even you, as you pass on your longevity, your how you've maintained yourself, that sort of thing is why I like hanging around actors and just sitting around and just being around them and hoping through some sort of osmosis I can get something out of it. You know what I mean?
And learn from each other. And
exactly.
And just the fun of it all. When I'm with people who aren't in show business, mm-hmm. I feel a little bit like an outsider.
Out of place. I do too.
And you know, I love people, so mm-hmm. it's not a biggie. But I crave being with people who've actually gotten on a stage, mm-hmm. or gotten in front of a camera or behind a camera.
How do you feel that narcissism plays in the life of an actor, being narcissistic?
Well, in the first years that I was an actor, uh-huh. I was way, way, way narcissistic. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was all about me, and I didn't care who I walked over. Really?
Wow, I never heard you say that.
No, I wasn't consciously doing it because mm-hmm. I was brought up really well, but I was unconsciously like a bulldozer, just... Mm-hmm. I'm going there and
I'm going to audition for this part and knock all these bitches out of the way, right?
And then I had a nervous breakdown. Mm-hmm. All of that led to a nervous breakdown because I didn't have, my spiritual life wasn't balanced to balance out the rejection mm-hmm. and the amount of competition and everything of show business. Mm-hmm. So at a fairly young age, I think I was 28 or 29, mm-hmm. I got on a spiritual path. And from that point until now, I've always made my spiritual path more important than my acting career. Mm-hmm. And so that allows me to keep balanced. When I see my ego getting out,
right.
Rein it back in. I try and give to people. I just finished coaching 2 actors in their 20s today, and you know, wanted their success. I mean, their success is my success.
And then you connect that with your charity work as well, don't you?
Say it again. My charity work. Well, yeah, I don't use the word charity work. I use service. I do a lot of service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you were telling me earlier about some of the stuff that you were doing.
I belong to Heartfelt Foundation, right. which was created by John Roger, mm-hmm. whose show that which is on this network, and so over the years I've been trained to be a caretaker, and I've worked with cancer patients and AIDS patients and Alzheimer's, mm-hmm. dementia.
That was so interesting what you were saying about spirituality, because I go to West Los Angeles uh-huh. Church, and Denzel Washington, a bunch of people go there.
Really?
And that just amazes me. They seem so at peace. And a few that I have spoken with said they just had to have this. They had at some point in their career go to the spiritual side because they needed to have that balance where you're up here one minute and everybody's telling you how wonderful you are, and you forgot you're just one of God's creatures here on a journey.
Yeah.
And you hope that on that journey that something good can be passed on to someone else to make the world better long after you're gone.
Yeah.
That's what I get from all the people that I see at West Los Angeles.
Well, I was pronounced dead. It doesn't get weirder than that. Mm-hmm. So being pronounced dead from my own hand, made me realize that being an actor can get way out of proportion. And when you read about these tragic things with actors, they probably didn't take the time, or it happened too fast for them to develop a spiritual life and a spiritual family of people that were always going to pray with them or meditate with them. Or
were you ever the type of actress when you're downtime, say you're on a set and you have your downtime where your part is not being filmed, do you take that opportunity to feed yourself with positive thoughts, or do you just stay in character?
I just try and it depends on
because
the
that's what I often think about. That's why most people get on drugs, because they have this downtime, they don't know downtime, and they don't know what to do with it when they're on a set, so they go to drugs.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm just a thought. I don't know.
See, I got finished with all of the drugs when I was in my early 20s or middle 20s. So it's really foreign to me now, because on my spiritual path, you don't do drugs and do the spiritual path. You know, you made a choice. Because like cocaine, marijuana, and God forbid heroin, causes rips in the auric field, and then the negative forces, entities can attach themselves to your aura, and suddenly you have two personalities, and you don't know why you're so depressed. And in some of the cases of these actors we read about, have a death wish. But if you have been doing the drugs, like that beautiful actor,
from a Glee?
Heath Ledger.
Oh, Keith Ledger, okay.
If he had been doing what they said he'd been doing, he's not his true self. He's in a state of psychosis caused by the rips in his auric field where all the negative forces have attached themselves. And he thinks that he's himself, but he's like him plus all the entities, that's just one person. You read about so many. So I had my time with that. And luckily I got over it in my 20s.
Did you have a hard fall, or you just had a soft fall that shook you up?
No, I was pronounced dead.
Okay, so that's a hard fall.
I was sitting on the 13th-story ledge of a building trying to jump, having taken 100 sleeping pills. I mean, I was quite serious about checking out.
What is up with the sleeping pills with everybody?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Anyway,
just
that
kill
moment
yourself.
is over with. So we have a minute and a quarter, and I want to say to you actors out there, the first and most important thing, and it was demonstrated this week by that wonderful woman who's 64 years old, who swam from Cuba to Florida. Never give up. Never give up your dreams. I mean, it took her 35 years. She tried 4 or 5 times to do that, but she did it and demonstrated to all of us.
And one great thing she said, there's no shelf life to dreams.
There's no what?
Shelf life to dreams.
Right, I didn't hear that. But
that's what she said.
No shelf life to dreams. So never give up your dreams. Never take no for an answer. Even if you take no for an answer, in the back of your head, you're strategizing your next opportunity to win. I did get all the way to the Oscars with a little $350,000 film. Who would have thought that was possible? But part of what I did was about 100 times a day I said my nomination acceptance speech, or my Golden Globe acceptance speech, or whatever.
Which I love, the Golden Globe acceptance speech.
You remember that?
Yeah, I played it the other day.
I said I was going to take all the 88 members of the foreign press home with me.
That was funny.
So anyway, I love actors, and I love actors who wear a lot of different hats. Act, direct, produce, write, do music, you know, so do it all. Have fun.
That's why we love Sally Kirkland. We're out.
So I wouldn't let you talk at all tonight, would I?
I'm sorry if I stepped over you.